school's out for summer. So what now for the kids? Should you let them run wild, let them have as much screen time as they like? And what happens in those older teenage years when the kids might be keen to head away with friends for New Year's? Kristin Ward is one of the coaches and presenters with Parenting Place. She's also a registered social worker and she has 3 kids. Morena and season's greetings to you, Kristin.
Morena, Catherine.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, isn't it? The old challenges of the festive season and holidays. How do you approach this as a starting point? It should be, it should be a great, refreshing time for everybody. Does it pay to put some thought into how things are going to work when the final school bell rings for the year?
Yeah, I want to encourage parents that some structure is still really good for kids over summer. And I think we definitely can let them have a few days of complete free time. But after that, in general, kids do better with a bit of structure and some expectations.
Okay, so let's just start from the beginning, perhaps. How much does age matter? Well, obviously it does, but what are some of the key factors to consider at different ages when it comes to that balance between freedom and structure?
It's good to really, from a young age, be drilling into our kids and helping them to understand that we all have different needs every day that keep us feeling good, keep us mentally healthy, keep us physically well. And Dr. Dan Siegel calls this the healthy mind platter. So we do need varied time use. We do need to move our bodies every day. We need to socialize in person with other people. We need to help out around the house a little bit. We need to spend some time doing focus and practicing a skill, as well as downtime, which might look like screen time. Yeah, so just being on our screens all day and night is not the path to well-being or a really good summer.
Do you have this conversation in advance of the first day? Is it something you want to work on? It's one of those kind of family, this is the way we do things that you might want to work on in advance.
It's a good idea to have a conversation with our kids. And just say, hey guys, let's have a little bit of a family meeting. Let's talk about what's going to make a good summer. And we might want to have a brainstorming session together where we all say, what do you dream of doing this summer? What's going to make it epic for you? Really get them to be creative, think of adventures, ideas, hangouts, places to go, out of the routine, out of the box, things that they want to do this summer. And then we can just write them all down and have them as a bit of a to-do list and things that we want to try and tick off. But also we can, as parents, say, and we do also need there to be a little bit of structure each day. And what that looks like is we're going to give you guys the autonomy, but we do need you to do something to help around the house each day, or we do need you to move your body each day. I would love you to see some people, socialize. And so you give the kids the autonomy within those guidelines, but that can be really helpful and kids can respond well to that.
Obviously, the whole point of holidays is that it's not just like day-to-day term time experience, work and school at home. But is there an advantage in, how can I put this, in communicating that there is going to be some kind of routine on this front? How much do you sort of leverage off the fact that obviously people are getting more freedom, but yes, we are going to keep some kind of structure or some kind of boundaries, including around behaviour?
And I think absolutely boundaries are harder to maintain in summer because it's full of fun stuff and everyone wants to be on holiday and for it to feel different to term time. And kids can push back on normal expectations and just complain a lot more about doing the dishes or helping out. They might say, let me rest, it's the holidays. And they might want to be on devices all day, or bedtimes might be something that they think there should be no rules all of a sudden. But I think absolutely there are some things that need to continue. Like we all need to keep helping out around the house or it's just going to turn into a pigsty. Or sleep still needs to happen. So yeah, it is a more challenging time. We don't need to keep it feeling exactly the same as term time, but we're just having those basic expectations is really healthy.
With safety issues, with younger kids, it's an opportunity holidays. We often fret that they simply do not get the time to roam. We sort of have those nostalgic memories of, come home in time for when it's dark, come home from time for dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, the balance between appropriate levels of supervision and who are you with and where are you, and giving them that little bit, that taste of freedom that can come with summer exploration, whether it's who they're with or where they go. What are you thinking through here as a parent or a caregiver?
Yeah, I think summer's an awesome time to allow our kids and teens a bit more autonomy and freedom than they normally have. They do actually have the time to get somewhere under their own steam, whether it's the mall is maybe an hour and a half walk away. They could walk there by themselves in summer. We could maybe allow them to ride to a cousin's house if they want to. We can say yes to more freedom, more roaming in summertime. A, the weather's nicer. B, there's a lot more time on our hands and on their hands that we've got available. And it's actually excellent for kids to have a bit more autonomy and freedom and to take safe risks. We want to encourage safe risks that push them out of their comfort zone a little bit, because this is very good for their development. And there certainly is a noticeable trend over the past 6 decades or so that children's roaming behaviour has got less and less. Their ability to independently be mobile around the place. And I think in the 60s, there's a statistic that 9-year-olds were able to roam about 9 kilometres independently, whereas nowadays parents can be a wee bit anxious about letting the children pass the mailbox. So it's I think it's good for parents to be pushing ourselves as well, to let children do a little bit more independently. And
there's the oversight team too. If they're out with other kids, is that case of the parents or whomever just keeping tabs, knowing where people are, but without having to be there or lurking, right?
Yeah, it's a real part of the thrill for young people is to actually not be supervised, whether it's going to the movies or the mall by themselves, whether it's hanging out at the beach or having a class hangout playing volleyball. So we can really try and say yes to these things, even if we're feeling like it's pushing us out of our comfort zone a little bit as parents. But we do need to have, obviously, we want some information about what they're doing.
Okay. The question of things like curfews and sleepovers and gatherings and setting expectations around them without it becoming a power struggle. Again, oh, look, we're on holiday. What time do I have? Why can't I stay out longer or whatever? Again, you're having to slightly deviate from what the routine might have been during the year, but is the principle still the same? We talk these things through, we negotiate, and ultimately we're the parents.
Yeah. I love your words. How do we have these conversations without turning them into a power struggle? And power struggles are just not very good for relationships. So I want to give 3 negotiating boundaries with teens tips. So the first thing I'd encourage parents to do is to listen to their plan, listen to their idea, hear the details of it. And when I say listen to their plan, I also mean listen to their feelings about the plan. Why is it important to them? What emotions do they have about going or not going? And really, we want to listen to understand and empathize with that so that our teen really feels heard and that we care about their feelings. Second tip, I'd say share your perspective as the parent. You have needs too, you have the need to feel comfortable with the plan that they've got. You have a need not to be spending a crazy amount of money, or you might have a need for them to come home by a certain time. And then thirdly, we look for a win-win. Can we both get our needs met, or are they incompatible? Can an adjustment be made to the teenager's plan so that we can say yes? And if it's possible, yay, woohoo, everyone's happy. If it's not possible, we can regretfully give our no. Your teen might still be really disappointed. There's no guarantee that they're not going to be really cross with you. But the thing is, your tone has been kind. You've been firm, but you've not you've not been damaging to the relationship. So that's what we'd really encourage about how to negotiate with young people.
Summer often comes with more social events, sometimes involving older teens. They might be meeting new people. It's very exciting. There's New Year's, for example. How can you, and is this a time to be talking about things like alcohol, risky behaviour, peer pressure, safety around people we don't know and looking out for each other? I mean, hopefully some of these conversations would have happened, but boy, things can ramp up a level, can't they?
Yeah, we want to have so many little and often conversations with our young people and our children. You know, what we encourage are what would you do if format for questions. So they're really brilliant. They're like a mental rehearsal for a real life moment. You know, we can be quite specific as well. You know, what would you do if you're at a class hangout and someone started passing a vape around and everyone was having a vape? You know, and then they have to think it through. How would I deal with that? You know, what would you do if you were invited fishing and they didn't have enough life jackets on the boat for everyone? What would you do if you were shopping and your phone and wallet got stolen? So they just are a little bit more resilient to those real life situations when they've kind of mentally rehearsed for them and even said the words out loud what they would say in that situation.
Vaping, drinking, drugs, the perennials that you're hopefully talking about and having some rules around and conversations about during the year. But again, summer can present new people, new situations. And if they do experiment, they're at an age where they're going to experiment with stuff. What kind of conversations do you have where something's happened and you want to deal with this the best way you can for everybody?
And I think we want it starts young. We as parents, we really need to try not to be huge overreactors when our children make a mistake. And that's easier said than done. But I think it's good to let our kids know what we really want for them. If they're at a party and they feel uncomfortable or unsafe for any reason, we would like them to ask us to pick them up. We can also jack up with our kids. If for some reason you're a bit anxious about me being the person to pick you up, what other responsible adult or older cousin or older sibling could you have on speed dial that you know would come and get you? We can have those conversations with our kids about, you know, I would be trying really hard not to be mad if you'd made a mistake, and it's much more important to us to bring you home, keep you safe, and we can talk about it calmly in the morning. And let your kids know a little bit what it would look like if they reached out to you if they'd made a mistake.
What are your thoughts on tracking kids via their devices? At what age? And do you need to have that conversation with them or hope that they agreed last time and they've forgotten that you're doing it? What's your view on this?
Dependent on personal circumstances, of course, and the age and stage of your child. But on the whole, I'm not really a fan of parents tracking their teens. I know parents, it feels like we're keeping them safe if we can see where they are. But I don't actually think there's a lot more safety that comes from monitoring location. It can give the wrong message to our teens that they don't need to communicate with us or be open with us because we can find out anyway. And we really want to put a high value on our young people communicating with us. It also doesn't actually prevent sneaking. I've heard of kids saying that they're having a sleepover at a friend's house, but they've actually just left their phone at their friend's house and then they've gone out to a party without their phone. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather my young person had their phone with them in case they really did need to call for help.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And I think it can erode that trust in our teens' competence or independence that we really are trying to develop in our young people. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Another example of being out of routine is that you've got siblings of different ages wanting the same freedoms. Now, that can happen at home, but it tends to be they tend to have different built-in structures to their day. They don't in summer. And, so-and-so can go to this or can stay out to this hour and I can't. How do you have that conversation?
Oh, sure. And it can feel tough for a younger sibling. And we can be empathetic about their experience, but it doesn't mean we have to buckle and make it all the same. That's part of resilience, is learning to tolerate disappointment. But we want to be just empathetic when we help our younger child tolerate their disappointment about missing out.
Also, let's talk about what happens again when the structure is upset by this, and we've got blended families, for example, co-parenting households. There are always things to be managed around that in terms of getting some consistency. But again, is this something that can arise afresh with holidays?
Yeah, look, it's hard. We don't actually have control over what happens in the other parent's house, and it really could be quite upsetting for us, what some of the permissiveness that might be happening from the other parent, or we may feel the other parent's far too strict. What we do have influence over is what happens on our watch, and so it's tough. It's one of those things where maybe you can have a conversation with your ex and try and reach a agreed standard, but it's not always going to be at all possible. It's one of those things it's really difficult for parents.
All right, how do you feel about the idea of a summer agreement or a family meeting to set expectations over the weeks ahead? We kind of touched on it before, but should we be writing it down? You know, we've got the to-do list on the fridge and who's doing what chores. Is it worth getting some things established before you even get in the car or on the ferry or wherever?
It can be a great idea. I think people operate well when expectations are agreed on and clear from the beginning. So, like I said, using the healthy mind platter as a model for how we're going to spend our time each day is an excellent one. It touches on having a reasonable amount of sleep because we don't want our kids up gaming all night and sleeping until midday. It just doesn't make them feel good. It touches on moving bodies, touches on hanging out with people in person, which is something we definitely want to encourage our teenagers and young people to do more of. They've never spent less time with their peers face to face. A lot of it, that socializing is happening online. So we want those skills developing, and it touches on, contributing around the house and having downtime as well. So it's a good model.
The other thing, and it's always hard to say, parents and the idea that we model the behaviour that we want our kids to have. It's a big ask, and in summer, for goodness sake, everyone just wants a break, right? But it's a principle that still kind of holds, including, I guess, giving ourselves a bit more flexibility and loosening a few boundaries. But it still holds, doesn't it? Your kids watch what you do.
Oh, our kids are watching us all the time, unfortunately. And our actions just do speak louder than words. So we really need to pay attention to that, what we're modelling. If we want them to have moderate screen time habits, for example, we need to do that ourselves. If we need, at times we'll totally need a reset. It's good to verbalise that out loud to our kids, narrate it. Say, guys, I've been on my phone too much recently. And I know sometimes you can't tell if I'm working or if I'm just scrolling. If I'm working, I still have to be on my phone. But if I'm not working, I'm going to have a bit more protected offline time. I want to spend more time with you. So that's like a beautiful way of role modeling. Same applies with prioritizing exercise or getting enough sleep and reading books and having varied time use ourselves. So yeah, they're watching everything we're doing.
And a bit of compassion and forgiveness when you get it wrong. Fair enough. Thank you, Kristin Ward.
For sure.
She is one of the coaches and presenters with Parenting Place, a registered social worker and a parent of 3.